All right. We are on the show today with Adam Weiss. We're sitting over here in Salt Lake City, a beautiful part of the country. And Adam and I go way back. I've been excited about getting him on the podcast here for a little bit. And we were actually out here. There was a Trump event that got postponed to later, maybe,
Hopefully next
hopefully,
month. Yeah.
hopefully next month. So, but some other cool stuff happening. And, Adam has a very diverse background in business in Salt Lake and Florida and kind of across the country, across multiple industries, lending, real estate, tech companies, incubators, venture capital funds, kind of the whole world. Young hustler guy and very successful. So, Adam, so tell us a little about your background, kind of what brought you to where you're at today.
Awesome. Yeah. So I grew up in Washington, moved to Kansas when I was going into eighth grade. Was always very into sports, and when I was junior in high school, I ended up breaking my back. So I had aspirations of going to school and being a chiropractor, and kind of thought that was going to be the route that I was going to go, and ended up breaking my back. So the dream of going to college and either wrestling or becoming a chiropractor was kind of out the window because I didn't want to pay $300,000 to go to school. And so when I graduated high school, I had two back surgeries the week after I graduated, and then had to kind of reorchestrate my life. So I joined a plumbers and pipe fitters union for a couple of years, was a union welder, and realized very quickly that I didn't like manual labor all the time. And I was looking around, and the guys next to me were 30 years older than me, and they could barely walk, and they were broke. And so I was like, this is a terrible combination because they have no money and they're like decrepit. They've literally killed their body. So I went and looked up some jobs, and I saw that Farm Bureau Financial Services was hiring for an insurance rep down the road from me. And so put in an application, got offered a job, and quit the union. And that was my first sales job that I did for just a few months in Wichita, Kansas before, I realized that to get real opportunity, I had to get out of there. And so I went home one day. I got married very young when I was 19. And so when I got frustrated with, where we were at, I realized I had to get out of Kansas if I wanted bigger opportunities to meet bigger people with bigger dreams and bigger goals. So I went home one day, told my wife, listen, we have got to move, and we can go to LA, New York, or Miami. Take your pick. And she's like, let's go to Miami. So we packed up our stuff, moved with like $3,000 down to Miami in 2011, 2012. And I moved down there, no job, nothing. Ended up finding a Craigslist ad that was for a stockbroker position. It was, one of those ads that looked like a scam. It's like, do you want to make $30,000 a month? Apply to this. And I was like, yeah, right. But I got nothing to lose, so I'll send it. So I sent it. They called me, went in for an interview, and it was the epitome of like a Wolf of Wall Street boiler room, in South Florida, and it was crazy. And they ended up hiring me. I started out as this junior broker that was, just doing calls. Yeah, they hired me. They told me my first day, they were like, here's a stack of leads and a phone. We expect 300 phone calls a day. And if you're still here next week, then we'll train you. And I was like, what do I say? And they're like, well, we'll teach you that next week if you're still here. And so I picked up the phone, started selling. The first deal I ever sold was, was a celebrity from a TV show that happened to be on this list. And I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Tanked.
Yeah.
Brett
Yeah.
Raymer, who
Yep.
was one of the first people I ever cold called, and got him to invest into one of the deals we had. And so it was a crazy, crazy process. And that was kind of the trajectory into sales. From there, I ended up moving back to Kansas City, got into marketing, and then was just grinding sales for the next several years. By the time I was 25, I was the senior vice president for a big financial firm in Miami. Had over 80 loan brokers on my team, 5 7-figure earners. At 25 years old, I thought I hit the jackpot because I was living in Miami, condo on the beach, VP title, 80 salespeople, seemed pretty awesome. And, but I just always had this itch to like not work for other people. And I knew I wanted to start something and build something. I knew I had the skill set to be able to sell. And I always was good at connecting people and bringing resources together. And so I met a friend, and we, ended up starting a recruiting firm that did $4 million in gross revenue our first year, landed 30 Fortune 500 clients, and ended up exiting out of that business, got into finance again, started a lending company. And then that just kind of was my trajectory into business. And so Today, I'm in the process of launching a venture capital fund, which we've talked quite a bit about. That's got a unique partnership with an in-house incubator. Hopefully, we're exiting out of a SaaS company that we've been building, and we bought a recruiting company 2 weeks ago, yeah, or three weeks ago, and we're in the process of starting a nutrition company as well. So,
Well,
yeah, it's a lot going on right now.
yeah, not busy at all. Hey.
Just a little bit, a little bit.
So that's awesome. I appreciate you going through that. So diving into that, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is how do you manage all that, right? I mean, you're all
With
over the
family.
place with family, with kids. What have you seen through all those different ventures? You've been successful and seems like most of those,
Yeah,
but how do you manage that now with, I mean, you do this all on your own? Do you have partners? Do you,
yeah, great
you know,
question.
how do you scale these companies so quickly and exit them and still keep your hands on everything else going on?
Yeah, great question. So, for a long time, I tried doing it on my own. For the first many years of my career, I tried doing it on my own. One of my very first partnership I ever created, I was young and naive and jumped into it too quick and got burned. I didn't understand the legal side and contracts and how to protect myself, and so it caused a big learning curve. And so for the next several years after that, I just didn't want to partner with anybody. I tried doing everything on my own. I started a consulting company and was like, I can make a ton of money just on my own. I don't need anybody. And I realized really quickly that it's limited what I can do, and everything rides and dies on me. And I was more stressed than I'd ever been. I was making good money, but I was very stressed and I didn't really enjoy it. I was waking up every day to, you know, fire messages from clients, we have a problem, we have an urgent issue, we need help. And I'm like, this sucks. I got to the point where I was like, I need to figure out how to work with partners better than I was in the past. And so I actually watched a video on Patrick Bet David on his Valuetainment channel that talked about how he vets partners and chooses partnerships for his businesses. And that was very impactful because it made me realize that I can partner with people and get more done and leverage my resources between multiple people and not get burned if I do it right and I properly vet people and choose the right partners and make sure everyone's protected and the understanding of what we're getting into is very clear. And so today, every business that I have has partners in it, at least two, some of them three, if not four. Partners within the businesses. And so we all have our own unique skill set. We have our own area of the business that we can bring value into it. And so it really minimizes the risk and the time that everybody has to put in because we can focus on one specific thing and leverage each other. But I've gotten way more selective about who I partner with and how I vet them out, and and making sure we spend good quality time, that our values align, and making sure that we have the same goals and outlook on what we're trying to do with it, and just very clear expectations.
So maybe talk about like how, because I think that's big for people
Yeah,
is, they try to do it all on their own and they would like to have partners. And I think a lot of people experience some of these things where they just go into business with somebody that they first meet that sounds like it's a good
been there.
partnership. And then over time, as we get older, we learn some of these things. But
Yeah.
so if you look back at, the bad partnerships versus the good partnerships that you've kind of worked your way into over time, what do you see as like the main differentiator between how those partnerships originally started? Because it's hard to,
Yeah.
you almost get into those partnerships and then you can't get out once you find out the stuff that you find out,
Yeah, you're
and
stuck.
it's
You've
not going
got
to
money
work.
tied up, you've got
Right.
commitments and processes and
So
employees
you
and
got to
things.
kind of vet all that up front. How do you do that now?
So, great question. So before I was very instinctual. So I would have an idea, I would meet somebody, we would talk about something that we thought could make money or work, and we were just like, let's go, let's do it. And that is the wrong way to go about it. So now my natural instinct is to jump into things. I like to go, like I don't like sitting still. I'm always moving, trying to make things happen. And so it's been hard for me to learn how to slow down and take things slower, but it's the biggest thing to making sure you can do it right. So now I spend a lot more time, just like you and I did, spending hours yesterday just sitting and talking and having conversation and seeing how things work and where we align and where we don't, and how we like each other, how we work together, and views and outlooks on things. And so that's the big thing, is really just vetting people out. And then once you've got a clear understanding on if a partnership could work, the second part that I really screwed up in the beginning was not having very, 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 very concise operating agreements that outline everybody's responsibilities and having it all drawn out and agreed to. You know, if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. If somebody does this, then this happens. You know, here's the scenarios for buyouts. Here's what happens if somebody dies. Here's what happens if somebody steals. Here's what happens if somebody doesn't deliver on what they're supposed to do. Here's what happens if somebody gets voted out. Here's what happens if somebody voluntarily wants out. And so having everything drawn up and very clear from the beginning makes it so much easier, because then when these scenarios start happening, and no matter how good of a partnership it is, things are going to arise eventually where you have a situation. And if you already agreed to it in the past and you can just point to it, nobody's the bad guy, because you're not playing it's not like good cop, bad cop where you're having, big disagreements. It's already agreed upon. And so it's taken a lot of stress out of a lot of the partnerships that I have, because we just make sure everything is very clear. So when we start it from day one, there's no confusion. We know what everybody's responsible for, what all the scenarios are, and we're on the same page. And so it's made my life a lot easier.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's the prenup, right?
Yeah, for real.
The prenup, and
The business prenup.
yeah, I've seen both sides personally myself too, and it's a little annoying with the type A's that just we know we want to do something and it's not sitting around waiting. We want to go, but it's that forced slow down period to make sure you're doing it right. Because once you're in that, you can
Yeah.
go once you're in it, but it's getting all that stuff buttoned up is kind of annoying sometimes, but
Yeah.
very good to do. So we were talking actually yesterday. So what are some things you've gone through business? You've done a lot of different partnerships. You've ran different companies. Have you always done it the right way? I mean, nobody ever does it the right way, right? But what are some big things that you've learned personally, or different changes or things that you've
Yeah.
struggled with that you've overcame that's really helped, and how has that helped those companies, the way you did things before versus the way you do things now in business?
Yeah. So for a long time, I just focused on grinding, and I think when you're young, that's a type A person. That's kind of your innate nature, is just grind it out. We're not thinking processes and systems and bigger picture ways of doing things. We're just grind our way to try to make some money and make things happen and get ourselves to the point where we can start focusing on other things. And so I ended up pushing myself to the point where I feel like I made myself sick. Um, for a decade straight, I was just grinding and not really taking much breaks. I was taking a lot of risks. Some of them paid off, some of them didn't. I made money, I lost money. I had partnerships flourish, I had partnerships fail. I just took more risk than probably I should have too, and went too full steam ahead on some things, and it cost me my health. And so last year I ended up getting really sick, where I was basically bedridden for 6 months, and got to the point where there were a couple times my wife had to call the ambulance because I was like turning blue and couldn't breathe in bed. And
Mm.
there were quite a few times that I not only thought I was going to die, but I was literally sitting there like praying to die, because I was so frustrated and agitated and just thought it was never going to end. And I was in constant pain. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't eat. I dropped all the way down to about 120 pounds, which was less than what I was my sophomore year of high school. And it was just terrible. And I drove myself to the point where I got sick because I didn't understand stress management. I didn't understand how to build a life that was sufficient for what I really wanted. I was just going after one thing, and that was trying to make money. And the more I chased it, the harder it become, and like the further the goalpost went. And I could never hit it. I could never achieve it because it was a moving target, and it really took a toll on me. And so after that happened, I kind of had to reevaluate my whole life and kind of what I was doing and where I wanted to be at and how I wanted to get there. And so everything I'm doing now has really come into fruition, over the last 18 months with a lot of these changes, just trying to figure out, now that I feel like I'm in a position where I'm healthy, I've got the ability to a second chance to be able to do what I want. What do I really want that to look like? Is it just about money? Is it about freedom? Is it about helping other people? Is it about a combination of all of these, and trying to figure out what kind of businesses and what kind of partnerships can give me the best balance between what I want? Because it's not just making a ton of money and having a terrible home life. Like, you have to have a well balanced mix of these things. And I didn't really understand that for a long time. and I struggled a lot because as a parent and somebody that, wants to be very involved in your kid's life too, one of my biggest struggles has been feeling guilty when I'm hanging out with my family because I'm not working, and when I'm working, I'm feeling guilty because I can't hang out with my family.
Right.
So it's like this never-ending cycle of shame that eats you alive. And no matter what you're doing, you always feel guilty. You always, just feel like you're behind the eight ball. No matter how successful you are, you feel like a piece of crap. Not because you're like stealing or doing anything like that, but because you want to win in these areas so much. Like, I want to be the best I can in business. I want to make a lot of money. I want to have successful partnerships. I want to build things that make a difference. And I also want to raise kids that want to see their dad when they grow up. I also want to raise, kids that I've got a great relationship with. I want to have a great family life too, and have, something that when I walk through the door at home, I'm actually excited to be back. It's not like a destructive atmosphere. And so figuring out how to balance those the has been way more challenging than any single business thing. Um,
So
but it
you figured it out now?
no, no, it's a work in progress, but it's it's better than it was,
What do you see some of the changes? I mean, 18 months isn't that long ago.
yeah,
What you're talking 10 years and then a year and a half, right? So what, do you see the biggest differences in like action items and things that you've done at that point after you were struggling and your health and all that? What are
yeah.
some like habits or things that you put in place? How do you do that for somebody who's kind of, and I think a lot of people are in that spot where they're go-getters, but they care
Yeah.
and they're empathetic, but they just feel like they're never doing enough. And what does that look like when you fix it? Does that change your mindset? Does that help get out of that headspace, or are you still in that? Is it just not as much? Like, talk
I
through kind of what
yeah,
you're thinking there.
I don't think you ever get out of it, but I think you can improve on it and you can learn how you work. Like, everybody's different, and the way that I operate and the way that I deal with stress and the way that I deal with things I want out of life aren't going to be the same as you. We could have the same values, we could have the same outlook on life, the same, overarching goal of freedom, but what that looks like for us is very different, and what that actually is going to look like happiness wise is very different. And so for me, I had to look at really where my time was going and how diligent I was being with the time I was spending doing certain things. Like, I'd be, at home for 3 hours a night hanging out, but was I actually giving my kids quality time? You know, um, I would spend, hours working, but was I really being productive? And so now I focus on very high productivity activities instead of looking at the overarching hours I'm putting into something and the quality of what comes out of it. And so when you really feel like your time is coming to an end, it messes with you mentally because you don't want to let time just keep slipping by. Like, every day that passes, you're thankful to be up, and you're thankful to have the opportunity to go out there and control your destiny and make things happen. And you're happy for another day with your kids. You're happy for another day with your wife. You're happy with, to have another day to go out and build your business. And and so for me, it's just been trying to figure out how to balance the inside of me, because there was a lot of, like, on the outside it looked great, and a lot of people would have never understood that for years, for like a decade, every single moment of the day felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. And I don't know if I was having constant panic attacks or if it was just immense stress that I put myself under. But I never felt great because I always had this heaviness inside of me that was just unsatisfied and stressed and just not happy with where I am. Like, I couldn't even sit down and enjoy the moment of what I'm doing because I'm always thinking about all the other stuff I should be doing. And so I've had to really slow down and figure out what is it that I really want, like really, really want, and then how do I actually make that happen? And a lot of times what I realized was that I was taking 6 hours in business to do something that could have taken me two. I was spending 3 hours with my kids and not really having even 30 minutes of quality time because we would be, on devices. Like, these stupid things are a
Hmm.
curse. They're a blessing and a curse.
Right.
And they'll wreck your effing life if you let it too. Like, we're so addicted to them that this thing was the cause of a lot of my problems, because when I would get spare moments, what do? We pull out Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and we try to get this this dopamine hit, and all these things just wreck our internal self-regulation of stress and how we deal with things. And so, it's still a work in progress. I by no means have it figured out still, but just being able to slow down and, and really plan my day out and, and focus on the highest productivity activities, have partners that can pick up the slack on things that I'm either not good at, shouldn't be doing, or don't want to do. And then building a life that I don't want to run away from.
Right.
That when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited for the day. I don't feel this pressure on my chest like I'm about to dread it. And so just really building what I want.
Yeah.
I was a part of a men's group too,
Okay.
like a men's coaching group here in Salt Lake that, we went through an exercise at the end of December, and that exercise had us write out, our perfect day, perfect weekend in very, very descriptive detail. Like, what does that actually look like? And that was pretty appalling for me too, because I realized that a lot of the things I thought I wanted, I didn't really want. We tell ourselves we want these things. Like
So like what was on that list?
yeah, like, well, we become an entrepreneur, right? And we think the goal is to just make as much money as you can, and we get so hyper focused on just making tons of money, and like we want the Bugattis, we want the jets, we want the yachts. It's like, but do you really? Like, you ask people if they want to be a billionaire. It's like, 9 out of 10 will say yes, but it's like, do you really? Do you really understand what you have to sacrifice to get to that point? Part of it's luck, but part of it is immense sacrifice for a long time. There's a reason why most billionaires have gone through a divorce. Yeah, and
Mhm.
a lot of them probably don't have great relationships with their kids because they weren't at their sporting games. They weren't at their practices. They missed the recitals. They missed the class events. The donuts with dad day, they weren't there for. And do you really want to sacrifice, you know, the purpose of life to make more money? And for most of us, we think we do. And so that exercise made me really reevaluate, like, if I could draw out what my perfect scenario looks like, what does that actually look like? And it had me challenge a lot of my internal beliefs of what I thought I wanted. And I thought I wanted all these big things, and I'm like, that doesn't give me fulfillment. That doesn't actually make me happy. Like, what makes me happy is winning with people. Like, I want to have partnerships where we're all winning, where, when we go travel, we're traveling together. When we're doing things, I have a community around me. I have people that are coming along on the ride with me. I would rather have four people win with me and all of us make a fourth of what I would make alone driving my Bugatti by myself.
Right.
Like, it's just not very fun winning on your own.
Right.
And so for a lot of years, I was just focused on me. And so that exercise made me reevaluate everything, my family life, my business, how I was going about things, and what I ultimately wanted. Because if you could draw out your perfect scenario and think about, if you could let your mind just wander and think of like your perfect life, like what would genuinely make you happy on a daily basis to wake up to? Most of the time, that's drastically different from what we tell ourselves it is, because we have these pre-programmed thoughts in our head of what people have conditioned us to think success looks like, of what of what other people tell us success is, and we see the status crap. But you don't take that crap with you when you die anyways. Like, I almost died last year, and I can tell you, when you're sitting there and you're turning purple because you can't breathe, and you're starting to fade out, the last thing you're thinking about is what car's in your garage. The last thing you're thinking about is, your status crap, your Rolex on the watch winder. It's like, none of
Right.
that shit matters when you're actually brought to a point where life humbles you and shows you what's really important. I pray that everyone has the opportunity to sit down and have that kind of self-reflection and force themselves to get into that mindset where they can do that on their own before something like what happened to me happens to them, where life forces you to learn it.
Right. And I
Because
think a
it,
lot of people, it takes that. It takes life forcing you. Yeah, I've been in those positions where, you get in your head, you're like, you have social media,
yep,
right? That's pushing agendas, that's skewing to what you should, and you're constantly seeing all that stuff. You feel like if you're not working enough, you're not going to achieve your goals, right? And I think there's a lot of these stigmas that aren't true that blind people
yep,
to true success. And I've noticed it myself, I kind of had to force myself to slow down as well. And you feel rough in it, but when you sit in it for a little while, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and you start working on yourself, you start to realize, man, I don't have to work. I'm more productive. I get more done. I'm
yep,
less stressed because I'm not. Another example, like I heard from somebody, and I've kind of taken this on the last few months, where 8 to 10 a.m. is my time, right? It's my time to, whether it's meditation or reading or working
Yeah.
out or, taking, just kind of organizing my day. Just that little piece there of just blocking that off when everyone knows on my teams and stuff that that's my time.
Yep.
You can book anything any other time of the week, but that's my time. And I've noticed doing that everything starts coming to you. And instead of the chase, it's like position yourself to where things come to you,
Yep.
right? And I think that's valuable. I didn't learn it till later in life too. And I think there's a lot of young entrepreneurs, which we talked about, if we would talk through the incubator and the venture capital fund,
Yep.
why a team, we're in the mastermind group together too. And guys like that and girls who are go-getters, have good hearts, care about making a difference. That's the type of people that, being in business with, you can do that, right? You don't have to do the 80 hours a week, never spend time with your family.
Yeah.
And so talk through that. So I'm excited for you with the venture capital fund.
Yeah.
That's really exciting that that's launching. I think you literally just wrapped up all the legal stuff last week, right? To go live.
No, so it's the docs are being made right now. So here within the next week, 2 weeks,
Okay.
everything will be going great, and the raise will start. And so, yeah, very, very excited about that. Out of all the things I've done in my career, I think that's probably the one I'm most excited about, because it's kind of the accumulation of everything I've done, right? Like I've worked in a lot of industries, from marketing to lending and business loans to recruiting to SaaS, kind of everything in between. And so having industry experience and all those things has kind of led me to the point where I realized like I've got a knack for building businesses and helping people do this. Like I know what it takes. It's people, processes, systems. Once you understand the structure of a business and the hierarchy of how it works and how it scales, it's the same whether you're selling septic cleaner or solar or you know or people in a recruiting business. It's the same processes. The thing that changes is the commodity. And so with venture capital, it's probably the single most exciting space to me in the world, because it's the economies of scale are in full effect. Like you have the ability as an investor to put your capital to work and put it into, the next up and coming, uh, the big things, and you never really know which one of those are going to be it. But you can bet on the jockeys. You can find jockeys that have prior track records, that have prior experience. And so that's one thing we look at with our incubator, is finding founders that have prior exits. They have a track record of performance. And so, if they've done it before, then they probably have that, that structure where they understand how to scale a business, and they can take it to the next one and do it over again. That's very, very exciting. We're about to do a $25 million raise on Fund One, and then Fund Two will be launching as soon as we get that filled up. And so we've got partnership with an incubator that is bringing companies in, getting them prepared for what it takes to be able to scale a business. So they're working with them to make sure they've got the right people, processes, systems, funding, product, everything in place, so that they could bring them to our fund. Our fund will evaluate them and see where they fit for capital. We'll inject capital in and get a board seat to direct and help make sure that they're using capital in an efficient manner to achieve what we talk about. And that's very, very exciting. The more I learn about that space, the more excited I get about it.
That what type of companies are you guys looking for? If anyone catches this and sees like,
Yeah.
hey, I like this guy. I want to be involved with him. I'm in a startup, right? Where do you guys have a specific strategy, a vertical? What are you
Yeah.
looking at certain stages for the incubator and then also for the venture capital fund? And if there's a way for them to get in touch with you, if there's some links we'll get later for
Yeah.
them to connect, we'll put that in the notes.
Yeah, so as far as stage goes, pre-seed, seed stage, early on startups are going to be our niche of what we're trying to go after. So that beginning stage of either product development, or they've got their MVP product and they need the capital to be able to hire the sales team and stuff to be able to take it and grow. That's really where we're focusing, is early stage startups. And then the goal is that we can exit out of those, around a series A, B, or, at the very, very latest C, or if they get bought out or acquired or whatever. And so we're looking at early stage startups. We're kind of industry agnostic. we're looking for winners. We are looking for founders with track records. We're looking for products that can scale. And like I said, I'm a big believer in the fact that if I'm looking at a business, the product comes after the founder. Like the person is more important because you take the right person, they can take a so-so product and blow it up. You could have a great product with a crappy founder and they don't understand what to do. And it's going to be a dud. They're going to lose money. And so, I notice with a lot of times with investors, they look at the product and they'll invest solely based on a product, and it's backwards. You're going to lose money like that. You have to look at the people running it. And a lot of times, what we see with these companies in the incubator too is that these founders, they may be a great founder, but they're a terrible CEO. Like just because you start a company and you have an idea doesn't mean you should run it. One of the things we'll do is we'll figure out where they fit into the business the best, and my incubator partner will work with them to make sure they've got a CTO if needed, actually, fits in that business, and a COO and a CEO and a salesperson, and making sure that the foundational team that you're going to be building on with money is actually able to hold a house. Because you got a broken foundation, i.e., the leadership team. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, how good of a product you put on top of it, it's on unstable soil and it's not going to work. And so the big thing we're looking at is not industry. We love tech companies. Obviously, AI is massive. I love tech, love SaaS, love those kind of products. But if somebody comes to us and they're like, "Listen, we've got a tiny house project that's absolutely badass, and here's a founder with a prior track record, and here's you know the opportunity that we see. They're not just using some lame market stats of here's what the market cap is. Here's like how much revenue is in the marketplace. In this industry, which nobody cares about. If you've ever watched Shark Tank, don't ever pitch somebody that's a VC company and come to them and say this is a $3 billion market, because nobody cares. What we care about is how much of it you can take. What can you withstand, and who are the other players.
So talking through, the capital raises and things of that sort, there's an event coming up you're talking about. You want to talk a little bit about that
The
and what
Jetson
that,
Capital event.
yeah, Jetson
Yeah,
Capital. It's
yeah,
really cool. I've never seen anything like that. It's
yeah.
it's very interesting. I'm going to make it back out. I know there's a couple guys in Kansas City that wanted to attend, and so I think we'll be flying back out for that. But
Yeah.
talk to some of that and who you're working with there and
Yeah.
what
So
they're trying to do.
yeah, so my buddy Jordan Hutchinson, local young entrepreneur here in Salt Lake, very very smart dude. He puts on these events. He threw one at Mar-a-Lago at Trump's house, I think back in March, and so he's throwing a Jetson Capital event here where he brings in all kinds
Is
of
that something everyone can do? Just go book Trump's house?
no,
No.
definitely not. Um, yeah, I think the one he did right after that or right before that, he had one of the F1 events, the F1 event in Vegas. He had Robert F. Kennedy come in, and was hanging out with him in one of the paddocks, and pretty cool networking opportunities. But big thing with those events is that if you're wanting to grow as an entrepreneur, and especially if you're young and you're watching this and you're just starting your career, the saying your net worth is determined by your network is one of the truest things you'll ever hear. Like the quality of people you have around you and the quality of people you can meet absolutely determines everything you have access to. Like a lot of the things that I have access to now, I didn't think of. Like, in fact, I thought of none of these. Like none of these were my idea. I had partners that saw value in a skill set that I have, and they came to me and said, "Hey, I've got an idea. I want to do something. I want to go buy this business. I want to go start this fund. I want to go do this. What do you think about being a partner on it?" And then we talk about terms. And so everything that I have going on right now, literally none of these were my idea.
That's amazing. That's
Absolutely none of
awesome.
them. Yeah. I've got a private equity company. That was my idea. But all the companies that it owns and has equity in, it was not. And so, it's all determined by the people you know. And so getting into events like Jetson Capital, where you can get yourself around high performing people that are further along in life than you, similar to you, depending on what stage you're at, is immensely helpful because they can unlock doors for you that you can't unlock yourself. Like you're one person with one series of networks, but if you have 10 friends or 10 people that you meet that all have the same size network that you have, you just 10x your capability of getting into things. And like one thing that was profound for me too was I realized that a lot of the people I really 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 wanted to know, I was about one connection away from. Like I'm one connection away from Trump. I'm one connection away from Robert Kennedy. I'm one connection away from any big entrepreneur or anybody that you can think of because I've spent years building this network out. And so a lot of these people that you look at, and that you listen to audiobooks from or you're watching podcasts from, that you put them on a pedestal and you think they're awesome. First of all, when you meet them, they're just dudes. They put their pants on one leg at a time. But second, a lot of times you're a lot closer to them than you really think, especially if you're out there networking and you're making good contacts with people. Networking is amazing because it's going to give you access to those opportunities that you're not going to have on your own. And one of the worst things you can do though is go to an event like Jetson Capital and go into it trying to get something out of it. Like go into it knowing that you're there to try to meet people. And when you meet people, one of the worst things you can do is try to raise money from them on the spot or try to pitch them something on the spot. And this is like the sign of like a rookie networker. They go to these events and they're walking around handing out business cards trying to pitch people. And it's like you miss the point of what this is about. Especially as you start working your way into like the higher quality people, like accredited investors, people that with $1 million net worths and above, or qualified clients, or ultra high net worth people. The way you get into these circles is by bringing something to them, bringing something of value. What can you help them with? And it's the same way I get investors today. Is I'd never pitch an investor the first time I meet him. I've got a process that I go through, which if you wanted to dive into, we could, or conversation for
Yeah.
another day. It's all about just being able to get yourself in the right rooms, and Jetson Capital and the events like that are an amazing opportunity to expand your network, get around some really high quality people, and
Yeah.
have fun too.
Yeah, I love that you dove into that because I think that's a big thing for people, younger entrepreneurs, is finding mentors, finding people further along. And I've been in spots where, a lot of it, I've been in that early on. I was like that hustling guy that,
Yep,
hopefully, but what I realized over the years is people who are more successful can see through the bullshit pretty quickly,
100%.
and they know they can pick up on who you are as a person very quickly too. A lot of the times when I was young and I was just money, 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 drive, 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 but no focus on being a good person or working on myself or reading
Yep.
or really, it's almost when you take, some of the things we talked about before where you slow down, you allow that creativity to come in, you allow that chance to spend that time working on yourself, because I spent so many years grinding and hustling, and to where I never even had the space or time to mentally, like, understand that there was things I needed to work on, yet even take the actions to work on them, right? I see a therapist every week. I probably need to see a therapist every week, right? But even if I at the points where I don't feel like I need to, right? Everything's kind of going good. It's still having these different connecting points in life that when you're younger, you don't think
Yep.
about. And then you start instilling them and you slow down and you start to kind of figure all this stuff out, because business and entrepreneurship is not a simple thing, right? And people think it is. You
It's a
ever get
grind,
asked
man.
this where, because I could see it, you probably get asked this a lot, like, how do you figure out how do you even know how to do that? Like, you were just doing lending, like, for you, right? You were just doing lending, and now you're, buying an apartment building with investors, and then, oh, by the way, you're also, working with incubators or, helping companies. So, it comes full circle to, it's not so much about the business. It's more, where have you gotten yourself capabilities mentally to, and so
And
that's
never
awesome.
and you can't underestimate the power of having partners that are experts in things that you aren't too. Like, do you realize that like do you realize how many people at like in Microsoft and Facebook became billionaires when they weren't the tech people? Like Eduardo, what was that guy's name? Eduardo Saverin or whatever, the guy with Facebook. He made like $8 billion by giving like a small amount of money to Mark Zuckerberg and like betting on him. Like, there was several people that in all these massive companies that weren't actually the expert. They just happened to be in the right room at the right time, heard the right opportunity, decided to partner with somebody, and maybe they had something specific they could bring to the table that that person needed. Or if you're like in our position where you've got a little more resources, you've got a little bit more experience, and people come to you for either your network or for the ability to bring connections into a game. Honestly, why a lot of people bring me in now, because it's like whatever we need, I I can make a phone call and we can get it. We need money. I make a phone call, we can get it. We need somebody over here that can handle VAs and stuff like that. It's done, in 30 minutes. And so there's a value to that. And so you don't always have to be the business expert, which people think when you're in a business or you're a partner in a business that you have to be the expert in that. You just have to have a partner that's an expert in that can operate it and that can be the person. And so it's not always just about you, it's about the team around you. Like you could have a specific skill set that is really not industry specific to what you're doing. Like my recruiting company, for instance, that we just bought, by no means like super savvy on all the visa types and the legal process, but we just bought a company that's helping people come to America and expedite the green card process. And I've got partners that are more savvy with that than me, and there's a specific skill set that they brought me in on that deal for that I can help them with, but they're the expert in that whole process and I don't need to be, and I'm good with not being it. And so there's a place and time to realize that you don't need to be like the most knowledgeable person in the room too. Like you can make a lot of money and just have slivers of things.
Yeah. Talk through that, because I've thought about that when you go look at investing in companies, and when I've done it personally, it's these founders hold on to equity like it's gold, taking a little, and I learned the hard way, taking a little bit of a lot is way less stressful and way more fruitful than trying to clinch on to everything like you're going to lose
Yeah.
something.
100% of this or 10% of this. It's like, what are you trying to satisfy, your bank account or your ego? Because you can't satisfy both. And people's ego gets in the way of a lot of their. Honestly, that's probably why I had partnership problems at the beginning too. Part of it was because I was uneducated on how to set up partnerships. The other was my ego was too big. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be the one person run. I wanted to be the person getting recognition. I wanted to be the person running things, which is stupid now that I look back. I'm like, you know, you get older and your ego gets checked enough times, you start realizing that's not what it's about. But it's a whole different game than what most people think it is. And there's so many ways to win. It's not just there's so many ways to win, but it's all about trying to find good partners you can bring in. And if you're going to give away that equity, if you're a founder and you're going to give away equity, bring in somebody that has a skill set or something they can bring to the table that's going to benefit you. And if you legitimately think that person's going to help you, it's ignorant to hold on to equity and try to keep 100% or a bigger percentage of something small when you could give away a little bit and have a smaller piece of a much, much larger pie. Let your ego go. And then in the long run, you're going to end up making way more money, and you're going to be way more happy with less stress because you have partners helping you too. It's counteractive to what we all want.
Right.
And like that entrepreneur hustler mindset goes against that.
But yeah. And hopefully people listening to this, if they've been beating their head against the wall, they find some of these realizations, or if they haven't yet and they're younger, that they kind of pick that up sooner than later, because you don't have to go through 10, 20 years of doing it the wrong way just to learn it. You can learn from other people.
Yeah. I know people that did it in like 2 or 3, and I'm highly jealous of them. They were smarter than me.
Right.
They learned quicker.
But at least you figured it out, right?
Yeah.
Some people, I think, go through life as entrepreneurs and they stay small, they stay stressed, they get divorces, they have all these issues because of their ego, and they feel like they have to hold on to everything, or else they lose everything, right? And it almost diminishes life in a lot of those ways. But
I've got a question for you. You believe in the law of attraction?
Yeah, I believe that.
What does that mean to you? Like, what's your view on that?
So, what comes to mind is the law of attraction, but also you speak what you get, and kind of your expectations and things. I truly believe in that you get what you are expecting if you're doing things the right way, right? If you expect things to happen positively or negatively, a lot of people get in these pessimistic mindsets and they attract pessimistic partners. They attract something big I've realized is, they say you are who you surround yourself with, the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? And I heard that for years, right? And I never really truly understood the core of what that meant. A lot of people feel they are where they're at in life, and they just coast through with people in their life that are that same way, not knowing that it's subconsciously they're doing that so that they don't get looked at as something that they're not, right? And so it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's comfortability, right? It's comfortability in those scenarios. And a lot of the big changes in my life and my businesses have came when things were uncomfortable and I sat in that uncomfortability and learned and processed things instead of trying to be the director of everything. And so when you step back, you can actually slow down and understand, one,
Yep.
what do you even want? What do you like? And then you're slowing down enough to be that, because until you start being like that, you don't have to be a multimillionaire who's giving and philanthropy and being a good person to everyone that looks to. You don't you It's not like you scale into that. You kind of almost have to be that until you can see who is in that world.
Mhm.
We talked about this. It's like if you I have a Cybertruck that's sitting at Tesla because I don't know if it's actually a good car or not, and I have until January to see if I want to buy it or not. I probably won't because I've seen things blowing up and burning and all this stuff. But I see Cybertrucks everywhere, right? There's not really that many. And so when you start putting yourself into, like, I went to the Dominican with a friend who runs an organization, Go Ministries, and they go serve down there. Getting around those type of people, you see that they don't really care what anybody else thinks or anything.
Mhm.
They just know what are good things to be doing in their life. And naturally, over time, they attract those type of people.
Yep.
And those are the type of people that really excel you forward. So you try to do everything on your own for, say, 10 years, and then you pivot and you start working on some of these traits and some of these habits and attributes and working on yourself and reading. And I mean, the power of reading, it's a lot of these things that nobody's going to tell you, right? Especially if you have a big ego. Nobody's going to try and help you because you have a big ego.
Mhm.
And so when you dial that back, you allow people to speak into your life. There's so many things that as a young entrepreneur I did not understand. And a lot of it has to do with, like you said, laws of attraction. You have to start being that to get that.
And it's funny too, because a lot of times what you've got going around you, like if you're attracting partners that are burning you or stealing from you or that are constantly in fear, probably attracting that to some degree because you're probably fearful all the time, and you're attracting people that are fearful too. And when people are fearful, they make sketchy decisions. And a lot of times the things around us, that what's going on with circumstances, are a byproduct of how we're thinking. You're getting the exact thing that you think you should get. The people in your life are a direct reflection of the people you think you should have in your life and the thoughts that you're thinking. And the law of attraction, I think, is very real, but it's not what people think. Like, you can't just sit on your couch and like will a Bugatti into your garage. Like, I don't care how much you meditate, you're not going to wish $1 billion into your bank account. Like,
Speak it. There's a Bugatti in my garage right now when I
yeah, I've
go
got $1
home.
billion. I've got $1 billion. Like, I don't care if you do that for 30 years straight and you're the best meditator on the face of the earth. You are not going to meditate $1 billion. Like, you just aren't. So it doesn't work like that. And a lot of people have this misconception about how it works, but it definitely is tied to, the direct circumstances that show up in your life, and the things that you have are a byproduct of the way that you think. If you're constantly fearful, you're going to attract people that are fearful. You're going to make fearful decisions. Those fearful decisions are going to yield fearful results that are going to cause more fear. And so, like, the things that you're feeling on a daily basis, like how you feel internally, if you're constantly stressed and like anxious and fearful, like, that comes out in everything around you. Like, people can tell if I'm hanging around you and you're like stressed to the nines and like you're just unpeaceful and like you have all this internal turmoil. People are going to tell if they spend enough time around you. And the people that are going to be okay with being around you are the people that feel that too, and they feel comfortable being around you, feeling the same thing that they're feeling.
Yeah.
And those are the partners you're attracting. Those are the people, the friends, the employees that you're attracting. When you're leading anything, whether you're trying to lead your house or or your kids or your business, or, be a leader among your friends, like, it really starts with being able to look at, how do I regulate my emotions and how do I regulate how I'm feeling? Do I feel like, is the things in my life, am I satisfied with them? And if you're not, you need to take a reflective look backwards and figure out, what is screwed up internally with you, because it's always something there. Very transparent earlier about, like, I've had massive problems with dealing with stress, and I've tried weed to regulate it. I've tried cannabis, I've tried CBD, I've tried a whiskey at night, I've tried meditating, I've tried freaking everything. And really, the only things that solved it were me sitting down with a pen and paper and working through what I really want and then trying to reorchestrate my life to be something that I'm proud of, that I wake up in the morning and I'm excited about. Like, it's a Saturday and I got excited to come do this podcast. Like, I woke up, had a pounding migraine still, took a little bit of medicine, felt better, and pumped to be here. And like every day I wake up and I'm excited to do what I do. And that's like the best place you can be in life, is when you love what you're doing, you wake up and you get to do it, and it's not work. Like, it's not fun. Like, I'm not counting the hours in my day trying to figure out when I can clock out and go home. You don't really get balance as an entrepreneur, but you can figure out how to cohesively mingle, but your personal life and your business life. And so there's a lot of times, like, we're going to go play some golf after this. And, one of my friends that I'm going to introduce you to, like, several times I've had meetings with him. I'll bring my son. He'll come to a coffee meeting,
It's
like,
awesome.
and so like I try to, you got to try to commingle things and have them inclusive. And it really helps, because you're not going to get that balance, especially if you've got a family. There's nothing you're going to do you're never going to feel to that point where you don't feel guilty about one of those, unless you can figure out how to be happy where you are with what you're doing in the current moment and blend them together. Like, don't try to keep your personal life separate from your business life. Like, try to make it one life that you're proud of, that you enjoy doing whatever you're doing in that moment. If you're doing, some business stuff and you're having business meetings, enjoy it. Be there where you're at right now and don't feel guilty about what you're not doing. Enjoy it. Be present. If you're hanging out with your family, put this stupid device away and enjoy it. Like, one big thing for me was I had to get rid of my Apple Watch. Like, first of all, because that thing was a curse. Like,
I've been thinking the same thing. I bought the first Apple Watch, and then I realized this is way too much. Like,
dude.
when the first one came out, and I sold it right away. So, for some reason I got it back again now. But I think it's because
Not to put you all black.
they made a bigger one, and I'm a big guy, so
Yeah.
the little dinky one was like, okay. So I tried the bigger
Need
one.
to get you a Panerai.
But you mess it. I mean, that's important stuff, though. Like, it's a little thing, but me setting up my do not disturbs, my sleep do not disturb.
Do you use the focus modes?
Yeah, I use all the focus
Dude, I use
modes.
the
So,
hell out of those.
but they didn't have them the first time, and so I was like, okay, let's set up some of these focus modes, and that saved me so much. I mean, it's nice being able to, when I am in work mode, to be able to have stuff. If I'm walking around talking, whatever, I can see what's going on.
Yep.
But then it's automated. A lot of it's setting up automation in my life.
Yeah, because they've got, like, I don't know how you have yours set up. I've got mine set to 4 different modes. I've got do not disturb, personal, work, and sleep. Depending on, and I'm very, very diligent about, like, each mode has pre-selected who I get notifications from when it's in that mode. So if I'm sleeping, there's only 2 people on the face of the earth that are going to be able to get a hold of me. And if those 2 people call me while I'm sleeping, I know it's an emergency. When I'm working, I've got my business contacts. I've got people that I need to be hearing from. Those are the only people that I'm going to get immediate notifications from. Personal is that's when I'm hanging out with my family and stuff. And I'm not getting business notifications. So like the focus modes are such a hack. If you're an entrepreneur, like you asked earlier, how I balance all this stuff, like part of it is being very diligent with the time when I'm doing something. If I'm working, I'm not surfing Instagram. I'm not like half working. Like, I am getting more done in 2 hours than most of you get done in 8. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
Because I sit down and I am grinding through it. I'm not taking an hour to do something that takes 15 minutes. And so I'm very diligent about it. The second is, like, when I got rid of my Apple Watch, like, I felt like the only time I wear it is when I'm sleeping, because I have this sleep app that I use that, and I like the alarm on there and stuff, so I don't wake everyone else in my family up with a beeping alarm. So I wear it when I'm sleeping. Other than that, it's on the charger charging, and I put it on before I go to bed, take it off as soon as I get up, and that's it. But I have all the notifications turned off on it, because I noticed that for me, I was constantly getting, like, I imagine you're like this too. Like, your phone is constantly blowing up. Like, I probably have 30 text messages.
And that's why things would take me 2 hours, because I keep getting interrupted from all this stuff. And so when you sit, it's like, but it takes the slowing down to analyze your life and learn some of these things, because that's just one thing. But there's probably 50 of those things that you don't have to worry about them anymore, because you've added them into your life and they're just a standard. But there's all these little hacks that people are running so hard that they don't slow down to realize that it's not that hard. You don't have to be stressed out and be successful and be an entrepreneur. That's a false statement that is put out in the world, that you have to grind and work
80 hours a week.
No.
Like, dude, I most of the time. So I'm an early riser. I get up, my alarm goes off about 5 a.m. Most of the time I get up, I spend about 15 minutes drinking a coffee. I look at news, venture capital news or finance news or what's going on in the world. I'm trying to get an idea of, things that I should know. And then after that, I go to the gym for about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on what day it is. And then I'm back at my house by about 6. And, from there, I normally crank out an hour ish of like deep work before my son gets up and got to get him ready for school. And then I'm back at it in a couple hours after that, after I get showered and whatnot. But like, there's such a way to blend your diligence with time, and you don't have to work crazy hours all the time. Like, I understand if you're young, like if you're young and you're in your early 20s, there is a time and a place where you just got to put in the dues. And like, there's years that I worked, like when I was at Dynamic Capital and, when I was 25 years old as the VP of this lending firm, I was at the boxing gym by 4:30 in the morning, and I was in the office before 6 a.m. Nobody on my team showed up till 8. I was there for 2 hours getting things prepared, getting a training set up, going through the CRM, getting things set up. I was between 6 and 6:30. I would get to that office every single day. I lived in South Beach, and our office was in Miami Gardens, so that alone was a 30-minute drive too. And I would shower at the gym, get there, and I would be there till 7, 7:30 at night, sometimes 8 o'clock at night. So I did that, but you don't have to. Now I'm to the point where I've figured out this balance, and I get more done in less time. I work to live. I don't live to work. Like, I love working. I love what I do, but all of my fulfillment does not come out of how much money I make on a daily basis. And so now there's a lot of days I'm done by 3 o'clock when my son gets home, and that's my goal, is to be done by the time they get home. So I can go to all his baseball games. I can take him to all his baseball practices. We can go to jujitsu. We can, go for family bike rides and stuff like that. But there's also times where that just doesn't work. And on a Saturday, I'm here doing a podcast too, not hanging out with them. And that's fine too. Like, I've learned to accept it because I control the days that I can, and I try to get done at a decent time, and I put diligent effort into spending time with my family. But then the other times when I simply can't, I'm not beating myself up about it, feeling guilty, because all the other times I've paid that credit to where it's like I don't feel guilty about it anymore.
Well, I'm sure your family appreciates it too. I'm sure that changed a lot when you pivoted from being there versus actually being there.
Yeah.
To where when you want to go do stuff like this, it's not as big of a deal because it's like you spent that quality time with them every night, right? And
Yep.
it wasn't on your phone and doing all this stuff.
One of the most important things too, that like, if I could look at my entire life and the opportunities I have right now, that I would credit so much to, is never underestimate the power of like a single handshake and nurturing that relationship. Like, I met you in 2012, I think,
Yeah, probably something like that.
2012, in passing for about 12 seconds probably.
Right.
And you were leaving someone's house as I was coming to their house. We said hi, and and then I think we reconnected several years later, and then we kind of fell ghost for a while and then reconnected later. That's a perfect example of like how nurturing a relationship over time. Like, you never know where something is going to go. This SaaS company that we're hopefully in the process of exiting out of. When I first moved to Miami, I needed a place to live, and I wasn't sure what area I wanted to be in, so I rented an Airbnb. We get down there, the guy that is renting this Airbnb to us in South Beach, like 6'3", jacked, like super sharp guy, sharp wife. We're renting, their dope place in South Beach. And so we get down there, and, we exchange numbers. We're like, hey, you're kind of a cool dude, like, let's exchange numbers and stay in touch. I nurtured the crap out of that relationship. He offered me a job at a company that he was building. I said no, which, looking back, I would have made about 4 million, probably $3 or $4 million if I would have said yes. But then he hit me up again after that when they sold that company, and was like, hey, I'm starting a SaaS company. Do you want to come partner on it? And I said yes. And that all came from meeting somebody at an Airbnb, a guy I rented an Airbnb from. I now am business partners with. Like, there's so many scenarios in my life like that where I crossed by a hair with somebody, and I never let things like that go. Like, if I come in contact with somebody and we have even if it's quick, I try to figure out a way to stay in communication, nurture it, see if it goes anywhere. Sometimes we hit it off, sometimes we don't. And sometimes it turns into something that, you never know. Like, that person you are standing behind at Starbucks tomorrow, where you're getting your coffee, and maybe you're having a bad morning and you want to be grumpy and just sit in your shell. That person in front of you might be the person that could unlock a door for you that's a life-changing opportunity, and you never know it. Back in the Amway days, that's the one thing it taught me, is how to like network and how to just be constantly looking for opportunities with everybody you meet, because you never know. And you're not going into it trying to find an opportunity, but you never know when that next person that you're going to run into is going to be that person that can give you an opportunity that can radically change your life. For the Facebook guys, it was the dude in the dorm room,
Right.
that everyone else thought was crazy, but two dudes said yes, and everyone else thought they were crazy. Same thing with Microsoft or any of these companies. Like, it's crazy how, just being in the right place at the right time, you never ever ever know who that person's going to be that's going to unlock that door for you, that unleashes the floodgates of everything that you want in your life. And so you have to be very diligent about nurturing relationships and being friendly with people, and always looking for that, because you never know where it's going to come from. So yeah, that was it. I've had a lot of
That's good. I'm
a
glad
lot
you,
of
I'm glad you paused us to
yeah, I
talk
mean,
about that.
I've had a lot of relationships that I thought were nothing at the time, and they turn out to be some of the most valuable things in my entire life. A lot of the things I have now, like the company I just bought and this supplement company that we're starting, are all from my CTO at that SaaS company. So
Hmm.
that stems from the one
Great
guy,
relationship.
the three out of the four things that I've got going on. Three out of the four major things I've got going on stemmed from meeting that one guy from the Airbnb. If I would have just rented that Airbnb, said, thanks, dude, see you later, three out of the four things that will make me tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars over the next 5, 6, 7 years would never have happened.
That's
So
amazing.
you never know.
And you had to be open to that. You weren't head down grinding on your phone constantly. Like,
Yeah, but
you cared enough about what to ask them questions and
yeah, but
learn about what they
at the
do.
time too, he was an employee. He hadn't even started a
Oh,
business yet.
really?
Like now,
Wow.
now that guy's worth, tens and tens of millions of dollars, and he's not even 40 yet. And he's, smart, successful dude, and we're business partners. But at the time, he was renting that condo to us as a sublease because he needed to leave and move to Virginia to go start his business. That
Wow.
ended up getting him to this point. So at the time, he had nothing he could have given me, and I wasn't looking to get anything. But it's just staying in communication and always understanding that no matter where somebody's at right now or how it looks, you have absolutely no idea 2 years, 3 years, 7 years down the road where that's going to come to. We would have never said hi and been friendly or reconnected. Like, who knows? Who knows
Right.
where this could go to, or the things we could do together.
I'm
So
glad we were. I'm glad
yeah,
we were.
so
So cool,
that,
man. I appreciate it. We're gonna wrap up here. We're gonna put all this stuff in the show notes, how people can get into Jetson Capital, if they want to connect with you personally, if they want to connect with the incubator, venture capital fund, all that stuff you have going on. I think it'd be good. You're a great dude, and you're doing some big
likewise.
things. And I'm excited to see. I'm excited to do this again in a year and get updated, or maybe even sooner, and see how all this stuff has been panned out. And you're now
Yeah,
2.5 years after your big pivot moment, and I'm excited for you. So appreciate it, man.
appreciate
And
you having me on.
let's go get some golfing.
I know. Let's go have some fun.
All righty.